Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witness for being here. And before I begin, I want to join my colleagues in offering my deepest condolences to the families and loved ones of the service members who died in yesterday's crash of a transport and refueling aircraft. Our thoughts are with them and the entire Navy and Marine Corps family. Now, Mr. Spencer, in recent years, there have been a number of reports of workplace safety violations at the private shipyards that the Navy relies on to build its fleet. And in fact, according to federal labor statistics, shipyard workers face an injury and illness rate that is roughly 80% higher than the construction industry generally. And the list of reported injuries and violations that these workers are exposed to is bone-chilling. Amputation, electrocution, suffocation, falls, explosions, chemical burns, cancer-causing fumes. The Navy is spending hundreds of billions of dollars at shipyards where workers are routinely injured and maimed because of lax safety standards. But a Navy spokesman responded to those concerns by saying, and I'm going to quote the spokesman, "We are not the overlords of private shipyards when it comes to workplace safety." Mr. Spencer, do you agree with this attitude?
No, I can't, Senator. I truly believe that as we go forward in today's environment, and we're talking about, in the case of shipbuilding, amping up the production and the throughput, we have to have a sustainable environment. That does not support a sustainable environment. I would hope it would be a whole-of-government solution. I think that OSHA is probably involved. But we look forward to making sure that we are good stewards of resources.
Good. And so do I hear you saying that if confirmed, you will commit to looking into how the Navy tracks and monitors workplace safety violations at the shipyards that it's doing business with?
Yes, Senator.
Good. You know, we're talking about growing the fleet to a 355-ship Navy, which would result in considerably more volume at many of these shipyards. And I think the least we can do is make sure that American workers who are employed in those shipyards and are building those ships are afforded reasonable protections going forward.
I concur, Senator.
Thank you. I have another question I want to ask you about. The Navy operates on the front lines of the threats posed by climate change, including rising sea levels and floods, more intense storms, higher temperatures. The Navy has long recognized the risks posed by climate change. Back in 2010, the Navy released a climate change roadmap which observed, and I'm going to quote here, "Climate change is a national security challenge with strategic implications for the Navy. It is affecting and will continue to affect U.S. military installations and access to natural resources worldwide. It will affect the type, scope, and location of future Navy missions." Mr. Spencer, do you believe that climate is changing and that climate change will continue to affect the Navy's installations and missions?
Senator, the Navy, from my briefings to date, is totally aware of rising water issues, storm issues, et cetera. We must protect our infrastructure, and I will work hard to make sure that we are keeping an eye on that, because without the infrastructure, we lose readiness.
So I take that as a yes?
Yes, all about readiness.
Good. And if confirmed, under your leadership, will the Navy prepare for climate change? I think this is where you were going about readiness. And I want to say that both in terms of preparing our own bases and installations and preparing for the crises and the insecurity that climate change will exacerbate around the world.
Yes, Senator.
Good. You know, in his farewell speech in front of sailors and Marines, former Navy Secretary Mabus warned that if we fail to act upon climate change, instability around the globe will inevitably intensify, and even our bases will risk being lost. I think he's right, and I will be counting on you, Mr. Spencer, to carry on where Secretary Mabus left off and to ensure that we adapt to this threat and we are ready.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.